Flipping up your brim should add a bit of wind resistance. You're running toward the wind, it's blowing towards you. This brim is catching all of that air, but in fact, 10 out of 10 runners experience a faster pace when their brim is flipped. Science, bitch. The Runner Distance Hat is designed with a purpose. The company is about having fun and enjoying the journey, which is why I fell in love with trail running. Sometimes when I'm preparing for a race, it almost seems like my training becomes a second job. So it's important to take a step back and really reflect on why we run, and it's because we love it. If you're like me, you're browsing Facebook or Instagram, and you keep seeing ads pop up for this runner hat. Specifically for me, I kept seeing this unicorn hat. And it just looked so cool, and I kept putting it off for weeks and weeks and weeks, and finally pulled the trigger and I bought it. So if you're someone like me and you just kept seeing ads about the runner hat and just wondering, how's the build quality, how does it feel? Well, this is my review for you. So let's jump right into the features. The first thing that sticks out about the runner hat, besides its awesome patterns and colors, is this really thick sweatband it has. I recently wore this exact hat during the Georgia Jewel for the entire 25.5 hours that I was running, and it was extremely comfortable the entire time. It was great for wicking moisture off my forehead and holding some cool stream water when I needed to cool down a little bit more. As far as retaining moisture, this hat is going to soak up that sweat just based on the construction of the materials. So after every one of my runs, I'll rinse it off, wring it out, hang it to dry. Sometimes I may even hit it with a disinfectant spray just to make sure it stays fresh. But you're gonna want to wash the hat after your runs, or else it's gonna, like your running clothes, like your shirts, it's gonna start stinking. So definitely want to make sure to wash the hat when you're done. Next are features. We have the securing mechanism in the back. This mechanism is a small plastic clasp. I've been seeing many more hats with this. I'm more of a fan of the traditional snapback, but I'm slowly falling in love with this clasp system. And the way Runner incorporated it, it's perfect. So on the hat, one side is just a firm fabric, no stretch, but the other side allows a little bit of stretch. This means that you can tighten the hat a little more than usual. It hugs your head, stays really firm, and not too tight. That sweatband is extra comfortable, so it provides a nice secure fit, so when the wind kicks up, your hat's not flying off. I will say the only downside to this mechanism is that it does loosen up a bit during my runs. Is this a big deal? Not really. During the Georgia Jewel, like I mentioned, it was 25.5 hours. I think there was 2, maybe 3 times where I had to stop and tighten it. But then again, I was taking the hat on and off. Like I mentioned, I was dipping it in the creeks and tossing it back on. So it was sucking up a lot of that moisture and had a lot of weight to it. So 2 to 3 times adjusting it during 25.5 hour period. Not major, but just something to consider. For this next feature, Runner seems to have defied the laws of physics somehow. This feature is the Brim Flip. Flipping up your brim should add a bit of wind resistance. You're running toward the wind, it's blowing towards you. This brim is catching all of that air, but in fact, 10 out of 10 runners experience a faster pace when their brim is flipped. Science, bitch. One of the main reasons I love Runner is the brim flip of their hats. I feel way cooler than I actually am when I flip up the brim, even more so with this BMT hat. As you can see here, it says barium. That's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, during my runs or races when I'm having a hard time, I'll flip that brim up and then my pace will increase. I'll feel like a total badass, and my cool stat increases, my speed stat increases, and I'll take off. And saying that out loud makes me feel really lame, but I'm still gonna flip this brim. Next is the fit. So with runner hats, I found that I had to tighten the straps almost all the way, maybe give a little bit of extra room for some additional tightening. As a reference, I have I'd say a medium to small medium head. My hat size is a 7 1/8 fitted, so that should give you a reference of how this is going to fit your head. I did notice that recently Runner now comes in 2 different sizes. There's a regular fit and there's a small fit. So one of my concerns was that back when I bought this specific unicorn hat, about a year ago, I think they may have only had one size, and I thought it was kind of weird because, like I said, I don't have the smallest head. I'm kind of, right in the middle, so I was wondering how these hats would fit on someone with a much smaller head. But it seems like they thought that too, and so they actually have multiple size options now. Like I mentioned, for the BMT hat, the back is actually a stretchy material, and my unicorn hat that I got about a year ago, it doesn't have that stretchy material. Both pieces of fabric they don't have any stretch. I reached out to Runner, and they did tell me that the stretchy material that you see on the BMT hat here is now standard for all their hats. So if you're gonna go and buy a unicorn hat or one of their other distance hats in the future, it will come with this stretchy material. Another highlight is the various materials used in the construction of the hats. The side is this lightweight porous mesh material, and the top is more of the front's kind of a canvas, and the top is a less porous mesh. This allows for a venting of your head. A lot of that heat's going to come off through that mesh. These just feel like well-built hats. I'm not afraid to beat them up on my long runs or my ultras. Stitching is something else I look for first with any products, whether it be hats, shirts, race vests, race belts, and the stitching on the runner hats is top notch. I don't think I've seen more than 1 or 2 stray threads from either of these hats. Stitching is it's strong. It looks good. The hats are made in China, so quality is something to look out for, but in terms of the stitching on the hats I've received, it's just been excellent. Now, I'm a big fan of little extras, and I just love that minor attention to detail. On the inner lining of the hats, they actually print out their logo, phrases. For instance, this BMT hat says "Party Pace wins the race." On the unicorn hat, it just has runner. But still, I love that they not only focused on the outside of the hat looking awesome, but also the inside of the hat. That's something that I feel like is missed a lot. You go to the inside of the hat, and it's just plain. They didn't have any attention to detail. And I love to see that runner adds that little extra touch. For the BMT hat specifically, there is this print on the top and the brim of the hat, and I can't really speak to how this will hold up in the future, but I have had this hat for a number of months now. I keep saying this, but it's been through many long runs, many ultras, and it shows absolutely no sign of peeling. Those colors pop. None of the little individual pieces seem to be peeling off or coming off, so I am super happy with how that looks. When I got the BMT hat, I thought that was going to be the first thing that was going to go. I expected this to start peeling up. So again, taking care of the hat, washing it after my runs, not tossing it in the washing machine or the dryer. I think that definitely has added some longevity to the hat. The unicorn hat is still looking great as well. I think it's faded maybe a little bit over the year that I've gotten it. A lot of time in the sun. But I mean, you can see here, those colors still pop out real nice. So yeah, they definitely put in some extra work when it comes into that build quality, construction, and those little details. Now we're on to the negatives. So not really many negatives. However, I did notice for my unicorn hat that the stitching, not sure if you can see it from this video, the stitching is a little cattywampus right here. I actually didn't notice this until recently when I was going to make this review and I was going over the build quality and looking at the stitching. There I noticed that something was a little off with this hat, and now that I see it, I can't unsee it. So one thing you're going to watch out for when you get your hat, just take a look at it, make sure the build quality is up to snuff. Like I mentioned, these are made in China, so quality could be a little iffy right there. I would highly prefer if these were an American-made product. I wouldn't mind paying a little bit more for a domestically made product. I actually thought about reaching out to Runner and getting a replacement hat, but I've had it for a year. I've gotten a lot of use out of it, so it almost feels a little unethical for me to go and get another hat. It's like I said, it's been a year, so I'm thinking about just buying another one, especially since the newer hats all have that standard stretchy clasp in the back. Another negative for me personally is the general look of the hat when it's worn normal like this. Not to say it's a bad looking hat, but it does get kind of poofy in the sides, I think due to the thick headband and then the lightweight fabric. It kind of poofs out around my ears and I gotta push it down. I just feel like compared to some other hats, like the ones I'm about to show right now, like this one from Sprints, this is the Night Jags hat. This is a very lightweight hat. The sweatband is super thin, the materials are super thin, so you'd expect it to fit tighter and a little more fitted. When you get a Sprints hat, you're gonna get a very lightweight, thin hat. When you get a runner hat, you're gonna get a very thick sweatband as well as a very breathable upper area for the hat. If I had to put a label on something, I would view the Sprints hat as more of a road hat and the runner hat as more of a trail hat. But again, that's just me, that's my preference. For runner, I'm usually wearing it with either the brim flipped up, of course, or I'm wearing it backwards because this print looks really cool and I love showing it off. So, in summary, I really like runner hats, and I love the positive message they put out. Their products, for the most part, are very well made. Like I mentioned, that stitching, the construction of my unicorn hat, it's a little off, but I should have caught that and sent it back for a replacement right away. But that's kind of on me. I'm going to probably buy a replacement pretty soon. Besides the distance hats, they have a whole bunch of other hats, such as trucker hats and the Pacer hat. I'm really looking forward to getting that Pacer hat. And just doing this review, talking about runner hats, I think I'm probably going to put an order for that in pretty soon. So, that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, I can't wait to see you do something amazing.